I can hardly believe we are entering the last module of the flipped classroom formula. And I sound a little redundant here, but I don't care. You have worked so hard, and I really am proud of you. And all the energy, the thought, and the intention you've been putting into making your flipped classroom really a wonderful and effective experience for both you and your students. We are so close, and I want to help you finish with a bang of sorts. In Module 6, you'll be crossing your T's and dotting your I's, making sure you and your classroom are ready to go. Better yet, it's going to be all about making sure your students and parents are ready to go for the flipped classroom. We'll talk about the first days of school and ways to keep those communication avenues, which really is the fuel of your flipped classroom, flowing throughout the school year. So let's stop just chatting about it and get right to it. So you are getting ready to actually teach in the flipped classroom for probably the first time ever, right? So every time you prepare for back to school or returning after a long break, there's always that tinge of urgency. Oh dang, I'm teaching on Monday. I've got some serious work to do. Well, it's pretty much the exact same in the flipped classroom, especially at the beginning of the year or the semester when you need to introduce the flipped classroom for the first time to your students. Because that can be a bit anxiety provoking for us, I want to provide you with as many resources as possible to take, make your own, and just run with it. So in this first lesson, I'll show you my syllabus and make some recommendations on what to include in yours. Then we'll talk about some specific take action pieces you should wrap up this week to be sure you're prepared for your flipped classroom here starting soon. So let's get to it. Your syllabus is probably one of the most important but also unread documents in your classroom. Okay, maybe I'm just being too skeptical and a little dramatic there, but it does sometimes feel like students just toss these aside. So I try to make it as easy and appealing to digest as possible. It's also one of the biggest ways you can CYA, cover your butt when it comes to the policies and procedures of your classroom. In the PDF guide of this lesson, be sure to click and make a copy of this graphic syllabus template pictured here. I want to bring your attention to some important areas you want to be sure you point out to your students and even parents. The first area that you need to be super clear about is your grades. My recommendation is that a major component of your grades is comprised of your flipped video notes, especially when you first start out in flipping. When I started out, my flipped video notes were 10% of my students' grades. That may seem small, but when 80 to 90% of their grade were comprised of quizzes and tests, kids lived for that easy 10%. By the way, I totally pitched it to students that way. I told them, look guys, I spend a lot of time on these notes making them really structured and stellar for you so that we don't beat around the bush here. Let's get right to knowing this stuff. And I think they're super important. So important that I'm willing to give you a grade just for doing them. You're welcome. You'll thank me in a few units. Now, let me explain something here. In this image, you'll see that what I call the, quote, process grade, which is the student's process of learning the material through their flipped notes, is worth actually 0%. Seriously, 0%. Why would I even include that in this section then? Well, because I very much wanted to send a certain message to my students that just because you don't get a direct grade doesn't mean it isn't important. This is where a new process I used last year came into play, and I'm going to tell you about that in a few slides. For now, please know that my recommendation for you as you start out is to have your process be worth about 10 percentage points. The next important area of your syllabus that I want you to point out to students is a section on the flipped classroom. Make this as detailed but as straightforward as possible. Tell them what the flipped classroom is, what your expectations are, and be positive about how great it really is going to be. Next, make sure that in your expectations, you include specifics about the flipped classroom. Be very overt with students, emphasizing that it would be super easy to just copy notes from another student, just like most students do with their reading. And most of you probably get away with it, but your judgment day isn't on when I catch you. It's on test day, when you either A, totally bomb and are kicking yourself for your complete lazy girl or guy attitude toward this class, or B, are driven even further into the black hole that is cheating and lying your way to success, that you cheat on the test too. Okay, so that was a little tangent, but I go on that tangent every year, and it seems to be rather effective. So make the expectation clear that zero work that is taken from someone else and claimed to be one's own, with or without the other person's permission, will be accepted in your class for a grade or otherwise. You won't just not give them a grade, but there will be consequences on top of that, like a parent and principal conference or a detention, whatever your procedure may be. Lastly, make sure your Flipped Classroom home or your Flipped Classroom hub is clearly on your syllabus. I put both the shortened link, the URL link, as well as a QR code for students and parents to use. If you are using a tool like PlayPosit or Edpuzzle, I would encourage you to include the logo of that tool as well as the link and join codes for your class. The next take action piece as you prepare to really launch your Flipped Classroom is to fine tune that calendar for both your first and second unit. You have those videos made, or at least know what videos you are going to make. So go ahead and plug in the due dates for those videos on your calendar for the first 2 units. Then also make the plans for what you'll be doing in class those first 2 units. Even if it's just getting the topic or idea down on the calendar and you leave the minute details of planning for later. Lastly, this week, I want you to take those videos you've made for your first 2 units and upload them to your Flipped Classroom home. You may have been doing this as you made them, but I want to remind you to really beef up and use that Flipped Classroom home. It really will become your students' digital home in your class, saving you tons of time and stress later. This also means that when you say to students, these video notes are due Wednesday, there's no question on where students go to get those. Okay, now I need to backtrack a little bit and explain why my grades indicated notes or the process were worth 0%. Last year, I tried incentivizing notes outside of giving a grade, and I did that by using a game board I found on Teachers Be Teachers from a store called Secondary Sarah that I then made work for my classroom. If you want to know more about this game board, I included a bonus video in this module below this lesson where you can get all those details. But instead of doing the binder system, which I explained to you in a previous module, I implemented this game board system, which allowed me, again, to incentivize many aspects of my classroom without giving grades. I encourage you to check out that video if this might be something you're interested in. However, I want you to stop for a second and think about this, especially if you're one of those that's super duper excited by this idea. Take a breath real quick and ask yourself, can I take on making each of these game boards and going through this whole planning process in addition to flipping my classroom? For me, the answer at the beginning of my flipping journey, it would have been a sad but hard no. I want to give you options. That's why I include this game board here, but would encourage you to take a step back and solidify your flipped classroom. Then take this on, this game board, take it on over a summer in the future. You have lifetime access to this course and you can always come back to this lesson. Alrighty, so in lesson 1, you learned all about aspects of your syllabus that you should include and make sure that you really overtly point those out to students. And then those key take action pieces with both your calendar and your Flipped Classroom home. Your take action pieces this week, we've pretty much covered already, but the first one would be to get your syllabus completely ready to go and plan on how you'll use that with students in the first day or so of school. In my class, students saw the syllabus in one of the stations of the first day of school stations I implemented. Then you know the drill. Wrap up that calendar and get those videos into your classroom home. So in that next lesson, I'll make some specific recommendations, not just on the first day of school, but even on the first week or 2 to help set up your flipped classroom for success. So when you're ready for that lesson, click next and I'll see you there.